James.
Hello there. I've been holding that smile all the way through.
Yeah. Well, we're here to give a bit of a panel on kind of your experiences on starting up a business. So I think it'd be good if you both kind of introduced yourself. We'll start with Jay.
All right. Hi, my name's Jay. I am one of the co-founders of an indie company called Arrogant Pixel. We're based in London. We've been around since 2015, trying to make video games, and I'm here now to hopefully give you a few tips and tricks. I do a little bit of lecturing at the University of West London on the games design course, and I'm undertaking a PhD as well, looking at project management processes in video games. And that's me in a nutshell.
Pretty busy then.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
And yourself, James?
Hello there. I'm James Brooksby. I've been professionally in video games since about 95. Rose up in pretty big company that grew pretty big in the 90s and early 2000s. Then started up a couple of studios. The last one I did, we just sold to Wargaming a couple of years back. I can't believe it's a couple of years ago now. And then crazily, I've started yet another one, which is called Absolutely Games. Even made my own merch just recently. So, you know, getting to that stage. And we're growing quite nicely.
Awesome. Cool. Well,
it's a very short one, there you go.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, well, we'll post a link to the merch in the chat as well, so people can.
No, it's not purchasable yet.
No, okay.
Just for the team.
Yeah. Awesome, cool. Well, we'll start off with a pretty basic question there. So, when you guys first started your business, did you have a business plan, and if so, how important was that going forward? We'll go to you first, Jay.
Well, me and Ben, the co-founder, when we first started up the company, in 2015, so that was when we actually incorporated. But when we decided to actually start making games, it was like in 2011, 2012. We were like early 20s or something like that. So really, like, a business plan did not even cross my mind, really. All we wanted to do was to make video games. But where I basically picked up business planning tips was from mentors, really, that they started to say, like, listen, you need to start getting some paperwork done. And also I came from the music industry, so we were a lot of the things that we were doing were sort of like band agreements. So it's very difficult to keep a band together if you don't have some promise of like financial reward later. So we're very much used to having these sort of informal agreements, you know, in terms of like bootstrapping projects and things like that. But a business plan specifically, you know, with, you know, the whole shebang, Word document, things like that, we didn't really come up with one when we first started, but we had a very clear idea of who owned what, who was responsible for what, and we were very careful in doling out shares, basically, when we're starting up. Maybe James has a different answer though, of course.
Yeah, James, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends. The thing is, people have different visions of what a business plan is. I've had to do a very formal VC one, which would kill your printer pretty much if you tried to make it, but we had to do it. But this time round, I would say I created a strong PowerPoint, which I tested on lots of people, along with a really robust spreadsheet, and importantly, had a vision, right? And that's really what people are after, right? There's the paperwork to back it up and something to send them after you've spoken, but generally you're getting across a vision. So strong vision, a method of getting it across, like a PowerPoint, some good spreadsheets so that you can defend in those Dragon's Den moments, which somebody will try and ask you a tricky question like, how much money are you going to make in the third year? And you're like, oh, so you kind of, you know, you don't want to be caught in the headlights. So you can do that. And the thing that I'd say is quite a good discipline is create what I call a one-pager, which is to try and condense everything into what looks like a brochure sheet. Font very much to the edge, small font, all the way to the edge, try and get it looking like a brochure, a one-page brochure for your company that condenses everything, the vision, you know, market you're going for, who the team's going to be, and so forth, into there. because really at the end of the day, it's nearly all about the team and the core vision, right? So, and team first.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. It's just the slides is such a good way visually of being able to like get the personality of the studio across. So when you're pitching or like communicating with other companies outside of just internal stuff, I suppose the business plan and things, I would be thinking that was more. I've never had to use it really, a formal document in the games industry or anything really like that, but I have been getting good responses from slides like James was saying, and getting more of like a visual, package together. I would advise that. Yeah, for sure.
Nice little segue into
it depends on the institutions you're raising from for
Yeah.
and the size.
Yeah.
If you're asking a lot of money, like if you're asking for millions from a VC, they're going to expect a good amount of time being spent on this, and that's where you will create something that you could kill somebody with in terms of the amount of paper you're going to print out.
Very heavy, yes.
And so you guys were talking about funding there. So what kind of funding options did you kind of look out for when you were starting off? And have you got any pros or cons to different types of funding models that you've gone after? James, you want to start with that one?
So I've done, publisher funding, project financing, equity financing, not only a tiny bit of debt, but not really much debt. Various different ones, and like I say, different types of equity financing as well, from friends and family rounds through to angel rounds, multi-angel rounds, and then VC rounds, and then strategic investors and international strategic investors. So quite a few different methods.
Yeah.
They're not massively different in a way. You want money, they want something. But it has a slightly different flavor. In terms of what you would recommend for people, it does depend on where they are in their business, and it's a journey to some extent. It's all a journey, and you've got to start at the very beginning. So quite often you'll be putting your hand in your own pocket, maybe using some redundancy money or some something that you've managed to pull together, or as I know quite a few people have, is basically live on thin air at mum and dad's for a while to get the company going, then get that next small bit of money, then get the next slightly larger bit of money, and just gradually grow from there. I mean, this company started with sweat equity combined with some cash made out of the last transaction, and then just start growing and growing and growing from there. They all have pros and cons. Generally, angels and strategics should be more aligned with you, just because of the nature of them being less of a business. So therefore, they can be a bit more flexible, and strategics can bring some really nice benefits to the company because they have knowledge that they can bring, and partnerships and deals and so on to the table, so they can bring more than just money. And then VCs are much more of a business, right? They are spread betting, and you are one of those bets, and you need to know that. And they really know they know their way around this money raising and protecting their investment business. So but that doesn't necessarily make it bad. And I've had a very good time with a VC. It's just that they're a business.
Yeah, it really depends, doesn't it? I mean, again, as you were saying, that it's all down to your situation. In terms of us, for example, we started, I generally just don't like borrowing money personally. So that's just, for me, I've always been very much of like the indie mindset, especially with my music career previously, and now with video games, is just to try to bootstrap as much as possible, try not to rely on people as much as you can, especially in the beginning. As long as you are able to survive the next month, the next year, whatever, without completely crippling yourself, then that's a victory in my opinion anyway. But in terms of like actually of actual funding, we got a small startup loan from a private investor, again, friends and family. We burnt through, I didn't say burnt through that, we used that to basically like get ourselves off the ground, get our first sort of contracts in terms of like outsourcing. So it's a big, the way that we've basically structured our company is that we use our contracts that we do for immediate money, actual cash, to fund all of our creative projects. So in reality, I feel like we're in quite a strong position because we can walk away from deals because we can survive on our own without, you know, any kind of financial help. But we are seeking publisher funding, for example, for our next project. So we are going to need the support in order to work on this specific project full time. I've not had too much experience with VC funding, never got a company up to that sort of level before. But I imagine that when you find the right partner, that they will be able to help you quite a lot. Same thing as publishers, I guess. It's just to find the right partner for your business. But I wouldn't be afraid of taking on a loan payment as long as you know that you could afford it, even if your company crashed and burned tomorrow, as long as you're not like completely crippling yourself. So only borrow what you can afford to completely lose, especially in the beginning anyway. So that would be my advice in terms of using multiple finance models, things like that. I hope that
worth bearing in mind on loans over a certain size. I mean, at the moment, there are some very interesting government schemes because coronavirus, if you've got existing revenue, but for a certain size. But at some point, you know, banks haven't been particularly lenders to the games industry. We're a hit-driven industry. It's hard to predict. We don't make widgets, and you know, you don't know that the widget makes £1 profit per widget. So they don't do that much of it. And generally, they may ask you to put up quite a bit of a assurance against it. So you don't want to put up your house if you can help it. Generally something I'd say to anybody. Some people do. I mean, one of the things that's to bear in mind that we are all talking about risk. I mean, we're all talking about entrepreneurial risk here. For all of this, they're taking a risk, you're taking a risk. It's all your appetite for risk at the end of the day. It's all a bit Dragon's Den. I mean, it really is.
It really is. Yeah, no, I would say that too. I would say that in terms of like risk, it's really good to limit your liability as well. So if you are serious about starting up a business and you're looking at money coming in and out of your account, no matter how small or large, it'll probably be good for you to incorporate. I don't know whether this should be the first thing that you do, because I certainly didn't. I definitely spent a lot more time forming the team first before actually, you know, taking the plunge and actually registering the company and, you know, being a limited company and everything like that. But there are certain benefits of incorporating over not, so that they can't come and steal your house if that's not part of your, you know, as long as that's not part of your business assets. So I hope that helps people there.
Okay, and what were the biggest challenges when you both started up your businesses, and are there any kind of key lessons that we'll learn? We'll start with you on that one, Jay.
For me personally, was finding the staff, the right people. I'm very aware that, like, once you, especially when you're bootstrapping a business, you are basically either offering equity or you're offering something, right, for people to come on board, which means that they have a legally protected stake in your business when they're first coming in. So for me, it's just like, okay, you guys are getting a 6-month trial, you know, that sort of thing before anything is offered to you. And I've been very, very slow to hire, and that's probably why it's taken me so long to sort of get it to a stage where I was happy to like incorporate and start running at it full time. So for me, it's finding the right people, and that was more including the directorship and every single member of staff. I have handpicked every single one. The funding wasn't so much of an issue because everybody had like backup plans. I didn't want to take somebody out of a situation that was relying on this company being a success. And even today, you know, the people in the business are not relying on this business turning over like, you know, millions of pounds or anything like that in order to survive day to day. So in order to actually work on it, you know, continue to work on our creative projects. So I guess for me, I'm very much at the start of my journey still, and James has obviously got a lot more experience. I'm sure you have got lots of lessons learned and lots of challenges, I'm sure.
Yeah, if we're on lessons learned, I recently did a talk which was 1 hour of lessons learned at very high speed. Yeah, so yeah, let's not start that one. But yes, it does come with a lot of lessons because I'm a veteran, you know, whatever that means. So biggest challenges, I would actually say it is always finding the money for me. I mean, I've been fortunate I have found it, but it is a challenge. Partly of one of those things of, again, being a veteran, is that I know quite a lot of people and have always stuck to my values and created a good culture so that I can go to people that I know and like and say, would you want to join, or shall we create a company, or be fortunate enough to have one company slightly roll into the following one and things like that. So actually the challenge then is how do you finance it? So and importantly, and it will come into the lessons learned to some extent, at the end of the day, it's all about cash and cash flow. So you can have money, but you need to know how long it's going to last, how you're going to spend it, and when it runs out. It's precisely when it runs out, and how you might have different ideas of making sure it doesn't run out on that particular day, and maybe it'll run out 2 weeks later. And it's one of the things that, of course, anybody who's going to invest in wants to know is that you've got a really good handle on your cash flow and your runway. So I would say finding money is the biggest challenge that I have found when starting businesses.
No, it's really interesting because in terms of like what you're saying about forecasting is really important, right? So in order to understand where you might run out so that you can actually try to do something about it in the interim as well. If you know that you're going to run out of money in 6 months' time, it's just like, okay, we've got 4 months to turn something around. So it does give you a little bit of like an early warning if you've got like those sorts of financials on point.
Yeah. I mean, generally, I haven't gone down to weekly yet, but you can certainly have a weekly cash flow forecast with your actuals being dropped in on a regular basis, so that you can then create a good look ahead. And then quite often, I've been at stages where we have used the bank of the taxman. So you just hold on to paying your PAY with their consent, by the way. You phone them up, you say, look, cash flow is tight this month, but we've got a VGTR payment coming in, for example, and you just say, look, can we hold off? We've been, at those stages before, but if you've got a real good handle on your cash flow, you can explain it to your board, you can be happy with yourself, and you can take the action like having a chat with the taxman. If you don't know where you are, which I have had that experience a long time ago when I first did this, I didn't have a good handle on cash. Somebody else who was more experienced than me came in and said, you're going to run out of money next month. I went, no, and showed them the P&L, and they said, no, that's not actual money. So it's like cash is king, and it's boring, but you do need to know your cash.
Get an accountant, please. Everyone.
Well, get an accountant, and if you're going to run a business, you've got to know it yourself, right? The accountant will only go so far. You've got to know this, right? Because the accountant isn't necessarily going to advise you, funnily enough, not to pay the accountant if you need to hold on to that cash that month. Right? Yeah, whereas you might need to not pay the accountant for a month because you need to hold on to the cash.
It's still so important to realize that you are responsible for your finances, not your accountant. That's the key thing as well. So having that understanding and being able to speak intelligently to your accountant so that you can tell them what you need rather than just like being very reactionary, is probably a good place to be as well. So learn things and practice a lot, I think.
Awesome, cool. Well, I think what we'll do now is we'll quickly just dive into a couple of questions that people have asked, because we're running a little bit over, and we'll move on to the networking platform, where any of the questions that don't get answered, I'm sure you'll be able to find Jay or James within the networking room, and you can ask them there. So the first one I'll pick out is, what is the best way to find appropriate strategic investors? I'll go to you on that one, James, first.
Well, so strategic investors are generally an investor that brings more than just cash, right? That's really what that means. And these days, funnily enough, there is, even publishers are putting them forward as strategic investors, where they're saying, well, I'm not just going to give you a publishing deal. I'm actually going to be after equity, perhaps, and so on. And actually, there are quite a lot of Far Eastern companies, and we actually had one a couple of years back, a Chinese company, which was a strategic investor. So they invested money, but there was a strategic benefit for us working together. The other thing is it could be it could be an angel. It could be an angel investor that brings, well, it could be anything from they are an accountant, right? And they bring an accountancy company with them, and you go, well, you're an investor, but also you're an accountant. So effectively they are bringing you money, they're taking equity, but they also have a benefit of, they'll sit on your board occasionally and maybe sit there and give you some really good accountancy advice that you didn't have otherwise, through to people in the games industry. So there's a lot of people who've done well in the games industry, and therefore they can be strategic, and their benefit will be mentoring and their black book. So you sit there and go, we need somebody who's got a really good link into Sony because something or other. And they go, well, hold on a minute, and just thumb through the black book and say, right, well, you need to talk to so-and-so. So there are lots of different strategics. Now, how do you find them? Unfortunately, during COVID, and this is one of the things I feel the most sorry for, is that people who've built up years of networking and black books are doing okay. But if you're a new business, it is really tough, because where you would normally be is down at Develop Brighton in the bar chatting to everybody. You'd be at EGX, you'd be at Ukie, wandering in and out chatting to everybody. There's that's a lot of the way that a lot of people have made their connections, or they meet people who will give them the connection. And as we're all sat in our houses, it's much harder to create those connections. There are events like this, so we'd start. There's LinkedIn. I mean, when I was raising money 5 years ago, I'm trying to remember which one, spent a lot of time going through LinkedIn, because things like LinkedIn and Facebook, you can see who's linked into who's linked into. So you can sit there and go, oh, the biz dev person at this company, oh, look who they know, and then start connecting. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it, because a couple of replies from those people might be massively beneficial, or they'll link to you, link you up with other people, I should say. So it is harder these days, but not impossible, and it will get back to normal, and then you just need to go work the room.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of online networking, for me, I've actually really enjoyed the experience, because people have been so open to connecting online, like we are today, for example, and being Zoom calls being normalized, and like everyone is doing video meetings these days. When I've been, well, we are currently seeking funding right now, so we have not done a pitch in person just yet, so it'll be interesting to see what the experience is like once we're back to normal. But LinkedIn has been great. I have spent a lot of time on LinkedIn trying to follow relevant people, and to be honest, when you do follow the right people, your feed becomes so interesting. Even if you aren't looking for funding, if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for anything else, then it's a really good resource, and people interact and actually get back to you on that platform with relevant information. So yeah, do as much as you can while things are the way they are. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I think we'll leave it there in terms of the questions, because if you guys are around for the networking, I think you both are. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll pop in.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So anyone who's got any other questions, please feel free to drop into the network, and I've posted the link in the chat. But thank you both very much for taking your time out to give us some insight on your experiences of starting a business. Really appreciate that.
No
and I
problem.
believe James is going to be on another panel at some point during the Hub Crawl as well. So.
Yeah, no problem. I think on the one about selling your company. I know it's like the other end, quite the far distance, but like happy to talk about that as well.
Oh, yeah. I hope to be in that position one day, James. So we'll see.
You'll get there. You will. You will. I can tell already.
I'll hope to catch you in Gathertown. If not, then see you guys. It was really great chatting.
Right, thanks. See you later.
And just so everyone knows as well, a lot of the things that have been talked about in kind of like the panel today about funding and other aspects, a lot of the themes that we'll be covering over the next 12 weeks will have relevant topics within there. So for example, one of them is getting investment ready. So that will cover various different types of funding opportunities that are available for people who are kind of starting their business. And also if you're a little bit further down the line and you're looking for a different kind of funding model. I will make sure I send everyone a link to all of the videos tomorrow, because I will take some time to chop them all up. And yeah, I'll make sure that you also get the links for the following Hub Crawl dates. But I really hope you enjoyed it and hope to see quite a few of you in the networking period. But if not, have a good evening, and thank you very much. Thank you.